From the moment we wake up, we step into the shoes that are ready to conquer the day. Places to go, people to see, but there's no stopping this beauty. So let go and be free to celebrate your confidence. Take control of your day with Legends legendary wave products to keep your wave sensational this season. Apply wave control evenly over the waves to keep your hair soft, smooth, with a gentle shine to give you the confidence you need to change the world. Live your legacy in style. Ease into the smooth wave of the day and become unstoppable. Be legendary with Legends Barbershop, living your legacy in style.
Most of the time, I think okay, not most of the time, but in most instances that I've heard about, it's mutual. The girl wants marks, the teacher also wants to sleep with the child, right? That's a mutual thing.
I don't think there should be gender segregation in classes because you're gonna have an issue of double standards. You're gonna have an issue of misogyny over feminism, and it's just gonna bring up a whole bunch of different social differences. I really just think that you're gonna have a lot of not necessarily racism, but like prejudice. I think I have a lot of prejudice. I just don't think so.
Dumelang Batswana ko lenteng. Radi Dumedisa here from The Voice Studios. We are the voice of the people. I am your host, Chief, and I am with my lovely co-host, Mr. Fangs. How you doing, Mr. Fangs?
I'm good, Big Chief. How's it going?
I'm fantastic. As usual, we are back again, Biggie.
Every week.
Every week, we always have a very interesting debate on our hands. And today we're talking about a debate that has been doing the rounds on social media. Well, there was a video that has been doing the rounds on social media of a teacher inflicting corporal punishment on a student,
on a male student.
Yeah, a male teacher inflicting corporal punishment on a female student. So, we want to talk about issues around that. And, it brought up the issue of segregating schools.
Hey.
Maybe this is something that could help with that, Mr. Fangs.
Yeah, maybe that's the solution. Maybe, because already it's illegal for male teachers to beat female students above the age of 12. Right, there's already policy about that. So clearly, Rabat following the rules. So maybe the solution is, the male teachers can't follow the rules, and just keep them out of contact with female students.
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion we're going to have today. But briefly, we just want to give a 1-minute recap because yesterday you were out at the court.
That's right.
Which court was that? The High Court.
The High Court.
Yes. Tell us, what was happening there?
Yeah, the High Court. The Court of Appeal was sitting. Case Mr. Hutsidi Emang, who had won a case against the state where sodomy should not be criminalized. It shouldn't be illegal. About win a case, I think, last year. And then the Attorney General appealed. And Maabani, that appeal case, Legabibo was a friend of the court supporting and Mr. Hutsidi Emang. And the Attorney General was represented by Mr. Advocate Sidney Pilani. So it was really interesting, and I'm excited about what I heard, what I saw. I've never been to a Court of Appeals case before, so we're looking forward to the judgment, which will come out in a few weeks.
Yes. I think it's a very interesting judgment. It's also one that the international viewers will also be watching. But there was an interesting clip that's been trending as well. Advocate Sidney Pilani, where he was describing people of the same-sex gender. And he described them using a word, the word ki matanyola. Is that a correct term to use to describe same-sex people, or is it a bit offensive?
I mean, I think it's one of those things, whereby we've come to this point in life, and we've never known any other word for it. And we've always known it's offensive. But when I heard him explaining it, this is the word for that act. So I'm not a Setswana expert, Chief.
Yeah.
But apparently that's the language. I don't know.
Yeah,
It did
yeah.
cause some controversy, didn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those words, yakabo nyoya liithoyana,
Hey,
and things like that. Anyway, but let's go to today's issue. And before we get into what we are going to talk about, we are actually going to bring in a guest.
That's right.
A learned friend from
Bonella.
How about you introduce our guest, Mr. Fangs?
That's right. Her name is Katlego Sechele from Bonella. She's a programs coordinator there. And she agreed graciously to be our guest today and kind of talk to us about your topic as somebody that deals with advocating for people's rights. So Katlego, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yes, I can.
Okay.
All right. So first of all, I want to hear what you would think about this idea ya go segregata or separate dikolo ditlase tsa bana ba bomme le tsa borre gore ba rutiwe ke only same-sex teachers.
Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it without me introducing myself. Okay.
Well, you can introduce yourself first. I already did, but you can do it too.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Katlego Sechele. I work as a programs coordinator at Bonella, Botswana Network on Ethics, Law, and HIV and AIDS. We're an advocacy organization that deals with advocating for the marginalized or key populations. These are people living with HIV and AIDS, people with disabilities, sex workers, LGBTI community, migrant workers, mine workers, and ultimately children. So we work towards advocating for their needs, legal barriers to them accessing services, and so on and so forth. Let me just jump into the topic. What is our opinion about segregating boys and girls in classes? First of all, I'll just like to make this comment that as much as school is about academics, school is also about social and emotional learning. So when we're doing this, but when we're segregating girls from boys, we know that they mature and they learn and their emotions come into power as they grow up. We are going to be denying them the chance to interact with their counterparts, meaning that we're going to be sending them off to the world after completing school without having known how to interact. Me as a girl, I wouldn't know how to interact with a gentleman. This is what brings up issues of entitlement. Gentlemen don't know how to interact with women. Issues of them being entitled to the body of the female counterpart would come up. And also, as a whole, people need to learn to interact and coexist with each other, regardless of their gender. We need to know that when puberty comes, how do you speak to boys? How do you speak to girls? That is a very critical stage that we cannot skip in the development of children.
Okay, I want to actually pick your brain on that quickly before you go on. So, I mean, today's topic has been spurred by another video that was doing the rounds on social media. I get it. You're in a male teacher, a female student. I get it. And your organization put out a statement condemning this on the grounds that it's illegal, right? Banaba Skolo, Banaba Basitsana above the age of 12 are not supposed to be hit by the teacher Ratzaborre. I get it. So I'm just wondering if now we know that male teachers can break this rule, how do you suggest that we protect female students from this?
Thank you for that question. We did issue out that statement, but what we were saying is that it is there, it is happening. So we should find a way of curbing it. So as Bonella, our opinion was that there should be a child protection committee, which includes proceedings that can take into consideration what action can be taken towards that teacher who is violating the act, the policy. So what we're saying is that the policy, of course.
I just wanted to interject there because Bosetu put out a statement talking about how, for example, that incident that we saw, the voices that we could hear here, that advisory council that sat and decided that this is the punishment that is appropriate for this girl, even though that punishment, according to legislation, is illegal. So I'm just wondering, if you were to have an association like this, would it not just result in the same thing?
Yeah, what we're saying is that we're not discriminating to say that there should be a law for girls or for women. There's already a policy, the Education Regulations of 1968, that is stipulating that a man should not apply corporal punishment to a female who he believes is more than 10 years old. So what we're saying is that these legislations and policies, they need to be put into place and take into effect disciplinary action for people that are violating them. So if somebody is violating that, we shouldn't say it's evident that they're being violated, people are not reporting or whatever. We should make sure that if they are being violated, then appropriate action should be taken by the people who are violating it. In that effect, not taking this action by making the children's social skills suffer. We can't say let's now segregate children into different classes just because somebody was irresponsible not to fulfill their teaching practices and was irresponsible to go against the policy that governs that profession. So now let's not make children to say now we're going to put them in classes, because let's control where the perpetrators' actions, where it's coming from. So if somebody is not confining to the policy, now let's take action against that person and not put into and not put children into the crossfire, because they did not cause that. The teacher knew that the policy says that and went ahead and did action.
Fair enough. Okay, so your position is that rather what we should be doing is enforcing the rules that already exist right now. I get it.
Yes.
I think that makes perfect sense. We gotta carry on, but I really appreciate you taking your time to talk to us today, Mem Masichele. Have a great day, and hope to have you on the show again soon.
Is that all?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you so much for inviting me for such a rather short talk. I would have wanted to go further into deliberating the talk, but I think what I said is pretty much enough. Thank you, and until next
I
time.
appreciate it. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Bye.
All right, yeah, that was Katlego Sechele from
Bonella.
Bonella, yeah. And ofila gore bona, there's already legislation. There's already legislation that guides my teacher the student young, and when they violate those rules, and those rules also stipulate punish you young. So those teachers should just be punished. We remove kids because you remove their opportunity to get socialized.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose segregation is a bit of an extreme reaction to something like this. But Guru, that's the reason why we're having this debate, to consider all of the options, right? But I just want to read very quickly before we get to the viewers' comments, because we always invite the viewers to share their views with us, right? I just want to read very quickly a statement from the Botswana sector of educators' trade unions from their Secretary General, Tobokani Rari, who they issued a report about this video that was doing the rounds from SSKB, right? And just basically, I'll just paraphrase what he's saying, is that they realize that in the school, there's a disciplinary committee made up of teachers, and that's overseen by the pastoral department. So pastoral departments in schools are manned by heads of department and supervised by the deputy of the school and ultimately the school head. What we gathered from that disciplinary committee is that it takes charge of issues of discipline, and it is the norm in the school that corporal punishment is meted out against student when there's issues of indiscipline. In this particular incident, the student was punished. They brought to school a weed cake. So that was the offense that the student did. So basically what the Bosetu is saying is that they investigated this issue and they found that it had complied because there was a committee, a disciplinary, and that gentleman was the one who was chosen. So now that's where we start our debate today. Just in terms of the effect that has on the girl child, what's that going to be like? Because, even if you segregate them, I get on to
and that's a whole other, we already had that debate. Should there even be corporal punishment at all in schools?
Yeah.
But before we go on to that, into like the second half of our show and the debate, I want to get into a couple of the comments.
Yeah, let's do the comments.
What's it? The first comment is from Lee Adolf. Are, that is called discrimination. It is also polarization of the social fabric. It would have a lasting negative impact on issues of equality and equity for generations to come. Idle minds are devil's workshops. Think better. Apparently, we're the devil's workshop, bro.
Hey, well, like the voice of the people. So, Lee Adolf Mambaba idol because even the students are at school. But you know, I think what the issue that he's talking about, the social fabric, how it polarizes. Because I mean, okay, over segregate the modiqueling. How about almost quelling? I can remember in interactor as men and women. So now, what makes just this temporary separation? What effect, if any, does that have?
Hey, I kere anong ha sa rutwi ke teacher ra re go ra lo teacher ra monna ga ka mo ita ga ka mo kgwathisa. They don't have access to them, so for sure that rule won't be broken.
Okay. Here's another one by Tepo Urban Laser Jr. A lack of diversity will make it difficult for young girls to communicate with the opposite gender in future. This would significantly diminish social skills and confidence towards the other gender. Therefore, a bad idea. Similar to what Mr. Adolf is saying, get the social fabric, the social skills. Now, how do you teach people to interact with the other gender?
That's the truth. There's one comment here that came, and you're not complicated. Mr. Adelaide Khotso, or is it Miss Adelaide Khotso? I'm really serious about Afghanistan. Hey, what I know about Taliban.
Taliban are separating. Let me read another comment here from Tumiko Salets. I think that will cause confusion with the children's sexualities, especially in secondary schools when they're just discovering themselves. Imagine a simple scenario of teenage boys not getting the privilege of teasing girls they like in class. I don't know if that's a privilege.
Yeah, I don't even think that's something we should be encouraging. Right? What is that? And also, now you want to dangerous saying, I know sexual development, but I'm is
that not part of education though? It's only about sexual development. When you are coming of age, how girls.
But I mean, this person isn't talking about education. They're talking about interaction or teasing girls. Or a lot I know you're going to school to meet women instead of to learn.
That's true. That's true. Hey. Maybe that's what he's doing. Let's read one more comment from Brighton Matari. That's why there are boys and girls high schools in Zimbabwe. We have boys high schools and girls high schools, and social interaction has never been difficult. It was deemed necessary for them to focus on their curriculum. And right, Zimbabwe more in terms of education. You're in education now, so maybe there is something to that.
Yeah, and even pre-independence here, there was a lot of all girls, all boys schools in Botswana. It's not like now our parents and their generation, Idulele, somehow not well developed because of it.
That's true.
So yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick... Let's go to the streets, to the people, because, as this show is called, it's the voice of the people. So we went out into the streets to ask the people what they feel about segregated schools. Here's what they had to say.
I, for the most part, don't necessarily agree with it. Like, I see how it could help, but at the same time, I don't see how it would completely solve the problem, because yes, you might be in a class with just girls, and the female teacher is there, but when the class ends, you're still going to mingle with these male teachers outside. So you are still very much vulnerable inside the school. So I do hear where she's coming from, but I don't completely agree with it.
Botswana Teachers Union also has to protect the teacher herself on her base as a child. Keep your eye out. Motsari abole teacher and gives teacher to more sharp. And somehow a video leaked. Whoever took the video should be taken to task. Why are they recording something that's in school grounds? It's between the teacher and the parents.
What kind of mingling would you be doing with a male teacher if he's not teaching you anything? If you don't have any assignments with him, if you don't come across him in class?
Men are weird. I'm so sorry. Men are just weird. They will just find a way to make it happen. I don't know. I just feel that way.
I just think as
But I
kids,
do get where she's coming from.
I just think as kids we're more vulnerable to those situations because we don't necessarily see it coming. You know, we're not at the stage where we are aware of very cautious.
And there was an instance in
Over-
Hillcrest with the
Exactly,
PE teacher as well.
and it made us feel very
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But nobody talked about it because none of us were aware what was actually
Until
happening.
I think
Do you
it
mind
was
just
only
briefly describing this incident?
okay. So we had a male PE teacher. I don't remember what his name is.
Well, you see what racial segregation did. You feel me? So if you segregate by gender, it's gonna put a lot of us at a disadvantage. Because it's not like we're not gonna encounter like the opposite gender just because we don't encounter them in class. You feel me? And I feel like it's important. Those interactions are important because then you'll know how to carry yourself when you're around like women. You feel me? So you know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. But you'll never know if you never put yourself in that situation. You feel me?
Let me be more of a 21st century speaker. How do boys see the relationship between women? Because a lot of the time you find that jokes are made about a high school boy having sex with his female teacher, and that's something that's praised, even though that's technically rape as well. So whilst I think there is an argument for it, ultimately I think the society and the classroom, it needs to prepare us for our ability to interact with each other, right? I think that ultimately there has to rather be norms and rules that are established in how people can conduct themselves, and these should be strict enough such that they are self-policing, and students be able to be in a situation where they are comfortable enough to come forward.
I swear to you, I know feet explain. The things you do, they drive me insane. Girl, I swear to you, I'm not lazy. See, oh girl, I need you tonight. Hey, oh girl, I want you for life. Oh girl, I need you tonight. Oh girl, I need you for life.
Situations like that where girls are around changing rooms.
Yeah.
Girls are around are in the swimming costumes, you know. You think about a situation like that and there's a teacher, a male teacher,
Actually, I agree
looking
with-
at those girls. If it was a female teacher and she was just looking at us, it wouldn't feel as weird because we're basically in a world where we have to fear men. You understand? We like, it's not even in a sense that there's no good men out there. Because we don't know who to trust in terms of men, we have to fear men
whole
in
thing.
general. Do you understand? So I think having that instance where there's a female figure around you that can tell you, that you can go up to and be like, ma'am, I'm on my period, and you're not shamed for it. You're not, he's not giving you a disgusting look. He's not making you feel weird, and he's not making any like predatory behavior towards you because oh, she's on a period, she's grown now. You
Even
get me?
instances like wearing a short skirt to
Yeah,
school and then a
it's-
male teacher tells you that you're dressed inappropriately. It kind of, to me, it's a thing of why are you looking at me in that way?
In an
Whereas
inappropriate
if
way.
it was a female teacher saying that to me, then you
Like,
wouldn't.
for
So
us-
actually, I've changed my mind. I
No, segregation is not important. We're in what generation X now, not Z anymore. Why segregate anyone? Gender shouldn't be even a thing.
Welcome back. We heard what the people had to say about this issue of segregation. So now we are just going to hand over to Mr. Fangs because bana ba segregate mo dikweleng. O go re bolelle ho Mr. Fangs ka boripana gore wa re horile.
Hey, kore nakanya kwa wan is I think the benefit of this proposal would be to protect the girl child, Wawan, because girls, we all know, are uniquely vulnerable to being exploited in a number of different ways that boys are not, right? And that's why there's a specific rule in the Education Regulations Act of 1968 that says that men cannot beat girls above the age of 12 because after that age, most girls have hit puberty. And then now, umochara hakai, umita hakai, you know what I mean? This becomes like the kind of contact that you're having with this child can be considered a violation of it can be harassment, it can be sexual abuse, you know what I mean? It all just depends on how that girl feels. That's why you have that rule. Then we can be reasonably certain that a sexuality is not a part of this punishment, right? So, and the problem with this is we have seen, like there's a Regulations Act, and we already had a school that decided that we're going to ignore this law and we're going to allow male teachers to beat children, to beat girls. And we've all heard, many of us have been in school, we know that teachers did this sort of thing. So clearly, these teachers have proven incapable of obeying the law. So then let's take those girls away from them because clearly they are not suited to protect these girls. And the primary role of a school is to protect the students and to educate them. You cannot be educated in an environment where you do not feel safe. Right? And that's the danger that you are creating in here. And it goes even further than just right? There's a number of cases or rumors that we've all heard over the years of students getting impregnated by teachers, of teachers having affairs with students, right? And it's usually male teachers having affairs with female students. These are children. They are not old enough to be able to figure out whether or not they want to be consenting to sexual relationships. And these teachers, because they're in a position of power, take advantage of them. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think that it is most male teachers. I think it's by far the minority of them. But either way, if you have one teacher in a school, they prey on girls in that school. It makes all the girls in that school feel uncomfortable, right? It also damages their development because environment thing where they're being sexualized. So I think that in order to protect these kids, in order to make sure that they can learn well, particularly where our grades are getting worse and worse and worse year after year, can we please protect these girls and remove them from the potential danger of male teachers?
Yeah, Mr. Fangs. You said some very interesting things there about protecting girls. But we need to why re bua ka kgang e le gore ngwana o na discipliniwa go tla ka weed cake go sekolo because that's the biggest problem in our schools right now, ke ill discipline. So how does removing the male from being the one who's carrying out the discipline to the student help this situation? Because I'm going to argue that all of these things can still exist when it's just women on women, right? And I can even possibly say it might even be worse because, of the classic stereotype that maybe a woman would inflict that punishment harder. I don't know. Stereotype anything, right? So that's the main problem that we need to start off of the issue of ill discipline, because kind of whether or not you are being disciplined by a man or a woman, you can still be abused by your teacher. That's the first thing that we need to realize, right? Because who inflict the punishment, it could be worse off than that man could, right? And then, you know, this issue of like males preying on female students. Look, I think this is a problem, right? It is a problem. Maybe it's not the biggest problem we have in schools, but in our guys solve how we increase policing and things like that, and education, and you know, monitoring, making sure to make sure especially because same-sex relationships can also exist in these single-sex schools, right? So the idea that a person of authority, the teacher, can sexually abuse the student can still happen across the board, whether segregated or not, right? But now, all that being said, look, I think that segregation in general, it gives a false impression of just society, because as soon as Letswa from that moment, that temporary segregation, you interact with society, like a number of the comments have been saying. This thing, it distorts the social fabric, because now you're taught men are kept one side, women are kept one side, and maybe you're going to have a problem just relating with the other gender in the future, because you've been educated in that way. So, you know, I don't believe in segregation of any kind, whether it be racial or gender-wise, thanks.
Before ke go hetola, ke batla go simolla ke bala comment engwe from Kabelo Skebo Bojalwa. Ari, I think it should be that way. Male teachers lose it sometimes. O khona go jafeneka a boy child. I'm a kopa in his classes for nothing, just to show the girl child how he can do it because of pride. Yeah.
I think that's what he was trying to say.
I think so, yeah. And most of the time, male teachers take time explaining topics much better to girls than to the boys. I think female teachers should stick to the boys while these males go to the girls.
Udumala Skebo, Migana Skebo Bojalwa.
Skebo Bojalwa. Oh, and I can't be Larry. Udumala Lena Karari, Bileno, Batahore. Go segregate way, yes, but in a border barutang was Basitana. And for me, Kanya thing, it always comes back to this thing. We know that men are a lot more likely to sexually abuse and exploit women than women are. Like, I mean, there's so many stats around the country about this. That's how we know we're a rape country, because there's so many men raping women. It's not likely that that's going to work out in the opposite way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's all sorts of stories of things that are happening in these Catholic nuns, you know. But I don't want to commenting with Ponto Moruti Aria. Kind impossible thing can become possible these days. Education policy also needs to change. Segregation will lead to lawless behavior from both parties. So yeah, ona o believe gore once ka segregator go tla be gonna o lawless hela from everywhere. One last comment from Henry Sijoy. Oh no, this one is completely unrelated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got one here from Robert Zvashura. The school doesn't operate in a vacuum. It is important to note that the school works hand in hand with other society institutions such as the church and the workplace. Think of what will become of those girls in a male-dominated workplace. More so, if we ever believe that education is a vehicle towards equality, we shouldn't try dividing students because it hinders progression towards equality. I hear these things.
Which is what basically I was saying.
Yeah, I just find like which dystopian world does everybody live in? We have all boys schools and all girls schools, you know, and it's not like people that go to all boys schools come out like not knowing how to talk to girls or whatever, you know what I mean? Or they don't know how to adjust into the work environment, or they don't know how to behave in university. I just find it strange, like that people think all hell will break loose because now, you know, between 7 and 5 in the afternoon, you're not in class with boys. Like,
yeah, no, that's true, Mr. Fangs. Well, that brings us close to the end of our show. How's about you give us your final thought before we wrap it up?
My final thought is this, right? The role of a school is to protect, educate, and empower students. If students are going to this environment and teachers are assaulting them, are breaking the rules in order to assault them, and they're getting hit on or sexualized or whatever, let's not take chances with children's development. Let's get them away from that environment entirely and put them in an environment where they can feel safe.
Yes. School is a place of learning and our children should be protected at all costs. But we must also not throw the baby out with the bathwater things, you know? How to go overhaul policy just because you want to fix one thing. I think there's a problem of a few unscrupulous individuals who prey on young girls, but then it doesn't mean that we need to overhaul the whole system.
We saw hit so there's one last comment then I give it away bad. Precious are women are rude. Please.
That's a woman. I get.
Hey, it seems like, yeah.
And our women are rude. So I'm not going to comment too much on that. Okay, I was just making that observation. And that brings us nicely to the end of our show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. We always welcome your comments. Yeah. Massive shout out to our show sponsors, our partners over at Le Africa. Yep. They sponsor us with some hand sanitizers. Sensitizers.
Hey, and the legendary barbershop.
You know, go check them out. So from us over here at The Voice of the People, we'll see you again next week.
Your specially grilled newspaper, spiced with lifestyle, sport, entertainment, politics, business, and international news. The Voice is available every Friday. Subscribe now. The Voice.